Welcome to your deep dive, all about essential Git commands.
Awesome.
You've shared a really interesting mix of sources with us.
Yeah.
Online articles, some pro tips from other developers, and even a section from the Pro Git book itself.
Yeah, it's a classic.
It's clear that you're ready to kind of level up your Git game.
For sure.
And that's exactly what we're going to do today.
I'm excited.
Me too. I think a lot of people hear Git and they just think version control.
Right.
But it's so much more than that, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What's fascinating about Git is that it's less like a simple change tracker and more like a mini file system for your project.
Okay.
Instead of just listing file changes, Git actually takes snapshots of your entire project at different points in time.
Oh, I see.
Like picture it, like
Got
a
it.
series of photographs capturing the state of your project.
I'm starting to see why that snapshot idea is so important.
Yeah.
It's like having a whole photo album of your project's evolution,
Right.
not just a list of edits.
Right. Exactly.
So even if you delete a file, Git can often help you undelete it because it has those snapshots to refer to.
Precisely.
That's really cool.
It's a powerful feature.
Before we get too deep into using Git,
Okay.
let's just make sure everyone has it set up.
Sure.
Most of the sources you shared mentioned that installation is usually pretty straightforward.
Yeah, it is. On Linux, you'll typically use a package manager,
Right.
like DNF or apt, depending on your distribution.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example,
Yeah.
you might run DNF install gitall or apt install gitall.
Okay, so those are pretty simple commands.
Yeah, very straightforward.
On Mac OS, you can often get Git through Xcode command line tools
Right.
or download an installer from the Git website. And for Windows users, there's the Git for Windows project,
Yes,
which provides a more tailored experience for that operating system.
definitely.
So no matter what system you're on, getting Git up and running should be pretty painless.
It should be.
Once you have it installed, a quick tip from the sources.
Okay.
The git make command can be
Yes.
a lifesaver.
Absolutely.
Do you use that one a lot?
All the time.
Okay.
It gives you a quick reminder of a command's options without having to dive into the full manual.
That's so helpful.
Super useful.
Okay, so we've got Git installed.
We do.
We know it's like a mini file system for our projects.
Mm-hmm.
What are the absolute basics we need to know
Okay.
to start using it effectively?
Well, everything starts with adding files,
Okay.
committing changes, and using that all-important .gitignore file.
It feels like we're about to enter a new level in a game.
Haha, I like that analogy.
Yeah.
Think of it this way. A file starts as untracked.
Okay.
Git doesn't know about it yet.
It's like it's outside the game world.
Exactly.
Okay.
Then we use git add
Yeah.
to bring it into the game, so to speak.
All right.
Now it's tracked by Git.
Gotcha.
And once a file is tracked, any changes you make need to be staged.
Okay.
This is like prepping them for the next level. Finally, you use git commit to permanently save those stage changes into Git's history.
Right.
It's like hitting that save point
Right.
and moving on to the next challenge.
Makes sense.
Yeah,
And the .gitignore file,
Mm-hmm.
that's like our inventory management system, right?
precisely.
Yeah.
The .gitignore file tells Git which files to ignore,
Right.
like temporary files, logs, or anything else you don't want cluttering up your repository.
So we can keep our project history clean
Exactly.
and focused on the important stuff.
That's the idea.
Now, one of the things that really intrigued me from the sources
Okay.
was the idea of Git as a time machine.
Oh, yeah.
How do we actually use it to peek into the past of our project?
That's where the git log command comes in.
Okay.
It lets you see the commit history,
Mhm.
who changed what and when.
So if I want to see what changes were made in a specific commit, I can use git log.
Yes.
And if I add the oct option, like this, git log gentle IP,
Right.
I can see the actual code differences. This is incredibly useful for understanding how the code evolved,
Absolutely.
reviewing my own work,
Mhm.
or figuring out who made specific changes.
It's a great tool for collaboration.
That BIP option sounds like it could be really helpful
Yeah.
when things get complicated.
It's a lifesaver, especially when you're working on a large project with multiple collaborators.
Now, we all have those oops moments when we're working on a project.
Oh, for sure.
What happens when we need to undo a change
Right.
or unstage something we accidentally added?
Git has you covered there, too.
Okay.
Git restore is a powerful command for undoing changes,
Okay.
but it's important to use it with caution.
I'm sensing a warning here.
Yes, git restore actually discards changes.
Okay.
So it's like hitting the delete key.
Oh, wow.
Make sure you really want to get rid of those changes before using it.
Got it. Use git restore wisely.
Exactly.
Now, I heard a lot about branching in Git,
Yes.
and it seems like one of the most important features.
It's a core concept.
Why is branching such a big deal in Git
Well,
compared to other version control systems?
this is where Git really shines.
Okay.
In many other systems, branching can be a real headache.
Yeah.
Slow, cumbersome, error-prone.
Right.
But in Git, branching is incredibly lightweight and easy.
The sources I shared mentioned that it's cheap, too.
Exactly.
Like, it's really easy to do.
You can create branches almost instantly and switch between them effortlessly.
Wow.
Think of it like creating alternate timelines for your project.
Oh, so I could create a branch to experiment with a new feature
Right.
without messing up the main version of my code.
That's one common use case.
Okay.
Or imagine you need to fix a bug in a previous release without disrupting the current development work.
Right.
Branching makes that process so much smoother.
It's like having a safety net to experiment and make changes without fear of breaking things.
Precisely.
And once we've made changes in a branch,
Yes.
how do we integrate them back into the main project?
That's where merging comes in. Merging is the process of combining changes from different branches.
And because Git is so good at tracking changes and taking snapshots,
Yes.
merging is usually pretty smooth, right?
Yes. In most cases, Git can figure out how to merge changes automatically.
Oh, wow.
Of course, conflicts can happen,
Right.
but Git provides tools to help you resolve them.
Okay, so branching is all about creating these alternate timelines for our project.
Right.
But what about when we need to collaborate with others?
Yeah.
That's where remotes come in, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Remotes are essentially connections to other repositories, usually hosted on a server somewhere.
So if I'm working on a project with a team, we would all have our own local repositories,
Right.
but we would also push our changes to a shared remote repository.
Exactly.
Okay.
And the git remote command is how you manage these connections.
One thing that stood out to me from the sources was the idea of having multiple remotes.
Oh, interesting.
What are some reasons I might want to do that?
Having multiple remotes can be very beneficial.
Yeah.
You might have one remote for your personal work
Right.
and another for a shared team project, for example.
Or maybe a remote for a specific client
Exactly.
or a backup repository.
Right. It gives you a lot of flexibility in how you manage your code and collaborate with others.
This is all making a lot more sense now.
Good.
We've covered the basics of adding and committing, using gitignore, exploring history with gitlog,
Right.
understanding the power of branching,
Yes.
and connecting to remote repositories.
It's a good foundation.
It's like we've just completed the tutorial level of the game.
I like that analogy.
Yeah, before we move on,
Okay.
let's take a quick look at tags.
Sure.
The sources I shared mentioned that tags are like markers in our project's history.
Yeah, you can think of tags as signposts
Okay.
that highlight important milestones in your project's development.
Okay.
There are two main types of tags, lightweight and annotated.
What's the difference?
Lightweight tags are simple pointers to specific commits,
Okay.
while annotated tags are more like official markers with additional information attached to them.
So if I wanted to mark a release version of my software,
Mm-hmm.
I would probably use an annotated tag.
Yes, that would be a good use case for an annotated tag.
Okay.
It allows you to record information like the release date, version number, and any relevant notes.
Okay. I think we've got a good grasp on the basics of tags now.
Great.
It's time to level up and see what other Git tricks we can add to our toolkit.
I'm ready.
What's next on our deep dive adventure?
Get ready to spice things up. We're about to delve into some intriguing details and even more advanced Git commands that will really make you a Git ninja.
I can't wait.
Stay tuned.
This deep dive is just getting started.
It is.
All right, I'm ready to unlock some serious Git skills.
Let's do it.
The sources you shared mentioned some really intriguing details
Yeah.
and advanced techniques that go beyond the basics.
Mm.
Where do we begin?
Let's start by revisiting the git log command.
Okay.
We talked about how it lets us see our project's commit history.
Right.
But there's a really handy option
Okay.
that can make git log even more powerful.
Oh, I'm all ears.
It's the stat option.
Stat.
When you run git log stat,
Okay.
you get a concise overview of each commit
Mhm.
with file-level statistics.
What kind of statistics are we talking
You'll
about?
see things like how many lines were added or deleted in each file
Okay.
for each commit.
So it's not just showing me the commit message.
Right.
It's giving me more information about what actually changed.
Exactly.
That's really helpful.
It's a great way to quickly assess the impact of a commit without having to dive into the detailed code changes.
I can see how that would be useful.
Yeah.
If I'm scanning through the commit history
Right.
and I see a commit with a huge number of changes,
Yeah,
I might want to investigate further.
exactly.
But if it's just a small tweak to a single file, I can probably move on.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about getting a quick sense of the scope of each commit.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Speaking of managing changes, let's talk about white space.
Oh, white space. The eternal struggle.
You know how sometimes you get those annoying conflicts in collaborative projects that are just about spaces and tabs?
Oh, yeah. White space wars, they're the worst.
Everyone has their own preferences.
Exactly.
And it can turn into a real headache.
It can be a nightmare.
I've been there.
Well, Git has some special merge options that can help us avoid those battles.
Tell me more.
These options allow you to specify how Git should handle whitespace during merges.
Okay.
So you can enforce consistent formatting across the project.
That's a huge relief.
It is.
I'd much rather spend my time coding than arguing about spaces and tabs.
Absolutely. Let the code do the talking.
Now, another intriguing detail from the sources
Okay.
was the choice between HTTP and SSH when connecting to remote repositories. We touched on this briefly before.
We did.
But it's worth exploring further.
Yeah, definitely.
I remember you mentioned that HTTP is often easier to set up.
It is.
But SSH is generally more secure.
Generally, yes.
Are there any other factors to consider?
Yes, there are.
Okay.
HTTP is a simpler protocol.
Okay.
And it usually works fine for basic interactions with remote repositories. However, if you're working with a large repository or you need to perform frequent operations, SSH can be significantly faster.
So if I'm working on a project with a huge code base or I'm constantly pushing and pulling changes, SSH would be the better choice.
In most cases, yes.
Okay.
And in terms of security, SSH provides strong authentication and encryption, making it the preferred option for sensitive projects.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Especially if I'm working with proprietary code or collaborating with a distributed team, security becomes even more critical.
Absolutely. You want to make sure your code is protected.
Now, let's talk about a technique that can really streamline your Git workflow: aliases.
Oh, aliases. Those are fun.
Aliases, those sound intriguing.
Yeah.
I've heard of them before.
Okay.
But I'm not exactly sure how they work.
Think of aliases as shortcuts for commonly used Git commands. For example, if you frequently use the git command to visualize your repository's history, you can create an alias called git visual.
Git visual.
That does the same thing.
So instead of typing out that long command every time, I can just use my custom alias.
Exactly.
That's brilliant.
It's a great way to personalize your Git experience and save yourself some typing.
I like saving typing.
You can create aliases for any Git command.
Okay.
Or even combine multiple commands into a single alias.
Oh, wow.
So you can get really creative.
I'm starting to see how aliases could become really powerful, especially as I get more comfortable with Git and develop my own preferred workflows.
Exactly. It's all about making Git work for you.
Now, let's step into the realm of advanced Git techniques.
Okay, here we go.
Get ready.
Fasten your seatbelts.
Because this is where things get really interesting.
It's about to get wild.
Bring it on. I'm ready to become a Git ninja.
All right, then let's talk about rewriting history.
Rewriting history? That sounds a bit dangerous.
It can be.
Okay.
But it's also incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
Commands like git rebase and git filter branch allow you to modify your commit history after the fact.
Why would I ever want to do that?
There are several reasons.
Okay.
Maybe you want to squash a series of small commits into a single, more meaningful commit.
Right.
Or perhaps you need to rearrange commits to improve the clarity of your project's history.
So I could use these commands to clean up my commit history.
Exactly.
And make it easier for others to understand how the project evolved.
That's one common use case.
Okay.
You can even use these commands to remove sensitive information that was accidentally committed.
That's really important.
It is.
But you mentioned that rewriting history can be dangerous.
Yes, it's important to use these commands with caution.
Okay.
The main risk is that if you rewrite history that has already been shared with others, it can create confusion and conflicts.
So if I've already pushed my changes to a remote repository, and then I go back and rewrite history, my collaborators might run into problems.
Exactly.
When they try to pull those changes.
That's why it's crucial to communicate clearly with your team if you need to rewrite shared history.
Okay, so rewriting history is a powerful tool.
It is.
But it's definitely not something to be used lightly.
Use it wisely.
Now, let's move on to another advanced technique. Submodules.
Ah, submodules.
I remember from the sources that submodules are a way to manage external dependencies within a Git repository.
They are.
But I'm still a bit fuzzy on the details.
Okay, imagine you're working on a project that uses a third-party library. Instead of copying the library's code into your project, you can use a submodule to include it as a separate Git repository within your own.
So it's like having a project within a project.
That's a good way to think about it.
Yeah.
Each submodule has its own Git history and can be updated independently of your main project.
What are some advantages of using submodules?
One major advantage is that it keeps your project organized and avoids code duplication. Instead of having multiple copies of the same library scattered throughout different projects, you can manage it in a single location.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it simplifies things.
And if the library is updated,
yes,
I only need to update it in one place.
Exactly.
That's very efficient.
Yes.
Another advantage is that it allows you to use specific versions of external libraries. Without having to worry about conflicts with other projects that might be using different versions.
Precisely.
So submodules give us more control over our dependencies.
They do.
And make it easier to manage complex projects.
Absolutely. They're a powerful tool for managing project complexity.
Now, I know we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
But there's one more crucial topic I want to address: data recovery.
Ah, yes, data recovery, everyone's favorite topic.
Data recovery, that sounds like something every Git user should know about.
It is, it's essential.
One of the great things about Git is that it's incredibly resilient.
Git is very forgiving.
Even if you make a mistake.
Yeah.
There are often ways to recover lost work.
Git has your back.
That's a huge relief.
I don't know, right?
I'm sure I'm not the only one who's accidentally deleted a file.
No, we've all been there.
Or messed up a merge.
It happens to the best of us.
Git keeps track of so much information behind the scenes.
It does.
That it's often possible to undo even seemingly catastrophic mistakes.
It's like a safety net.
What are some of the tools Git provides for data recovery?
One of the most important commands is git reflog.
Git reflog.
I like Git safety net. It keeps a record of every change made to the head pointer.
Okay.
Which is essentially a reference to the current commit.
So even if I lose track of a commit, Git reflog can help me find it.
In many cases, yes.
That's incredible.
You can use Git reflog to see a history of all the commits you've checked out, branches you've created, and other actions that modified the head pointer.
Git reflog sounds like a lifesaver.
It is. It's a very handy command.
And there are other tools and techniques for data recovery.
There are, but Git reflog is a good place to start.
Well, we've come a long way on our deep dive into Git.
We have.
We've explored everything from the basic commands to advanced techniques like rewriting history, using submodules, and recovering lost data.
It's been quite a journey.
It has.
And I think you're now well equipped
I hope so.
to tackle even the most challenging Git scenarios.
I'm feeling much more confident in my Git skills now.
That's great to hear.
But before we wrap up, I'm curious about something you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
The idea of Git as a way of thinking that could be applied beyond just code.
That's a great point and a perfect segue into our final thoughts.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Git isn't just a set of commands. It's a philosophy, a way of approaching any project that involves change and revision.
We spent a lot of time talking about the technical side of Git.
Right, the nuts and bolts.
But you've hinted that there's a bigger picture here.
Yeah, there is.
Something about a Git mindset that goes beyond just coding.
Exactly.
Okay, so tell me more about that.
The real power of Git lies in its ability to change the way we think about managing any type of information that evolves over time.
So it's not just about the commands themselves. It's about applying those principles of version control, branching and merging to other areas of our work and lives.
Exactly. It's a way of thinking.
Okay.
Think about it.
Yeah.
Git gives us a framework for tracking changes, experimenting with different ideas, and collaborating with others.
Okay.
These principles can be applied to so much more than just software development.
I'm starting to see what you mean.
Yeah.
I can imagine using Git for things like writing a book, designing a website, or even managing a complex project plan.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Let's take the example of writing a book.
Okay, I like that.
Each chapter could be a branch. Allowing you to work on different sections independently.
Exactly.
That's a great idea.
And then you can merge them together later.
I could experiment with different storylines or character arcs in separate branches without worrying about messing up the main narrative.
Precisely.
It would be like having a virtual editor.
Yeah.
Helping me organize my thoughts and keep track of all the different versions of my manuscript.
That's a great way to put it.
And it's not just limited to creative writing.
No, not at all.
Think about design work.
Okay.
You could use Git to manage different versions of a logo, a website layout, or even a product prototype.
Absolutely.
So instead of saving a million different files with slight variation,
and I've been there,
I could use Git to track the evolution of my designs.
Exactly.
And easily revert back to previous versions.
It's so much more organized.
And the branching and merging features would be incredibly helpful for exploring different design concepts and collaborating with clients or team members.
It's a game changer for collaboration.
I'm starting to see how this Git mindset could revolutionize the way we approach all sorts of projects.
It really can.
It's about embracing experimentation, iteration, and collaboration.
It's a powerful combination.
It's about having the confidence to try new things.
Right.
Knowing that you can always go back to a previous version if something doesn't work out.
Exactly. It's like a safety net.
Or it's about working together more effectively. Leveraging the power of version control to track changes and merge contributions from multiple people.
It streamlines the whole process.
The beauty of Git is that it provides a structured framework for managing complexity and change.
Absolutely.
Regardless of the specific domain you're working in.
It's a universal tool.
So whether you're a programmer, a writer, a designer, or a project manager, the Git mindset can help you work smarter and achieve better results.
It's all about working smarter, not harder.
It's all about embracing the principles of version control and applying them to new and innovative areas.
That's the key.
This has been such an eye-opening deep dive.
It has been fun.
We've not only learned the essential Git commands, but also explored the profound impact this tool can have on the way we think and work.
It's a powerful tool both technically and mentally.
It's been a pleasure guiding you through this journey.
The pleasure was all mine.
Thank you for sharing your expertise.
You're welcome.
I think we're both feeling a lot more Git savvy now.
I know I am.
And hopefully our listeners are feeling inspired.
Yeah.
To explore the world of Git and discover how it can enhance their own work and lives.
I hope so.
If you're out there thinking that Git seems like a powerful tool, but you're not sure how it applies to your field, don't be afraid to experiment.
That's the best way to learn.
The beauty of Git is that it's adaptable and versatile.
It really is.
There's no limit to the ways it can be used.
The possibilities are endless.
So go out there, embrace the Git mindset, and see what amazing things you can achieve.
Happy Gitting, everyone.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time.
See you then.
Keep exploring and keep learning.